So this is StockIQ. This is our home page. You'll notice over on the left here, there is a menu-based system. This menu-based system provides access to the various modules inside of StockIQ. Browser-based, meaning it can be deployed on-prem, it can be deployed in the cloud. It's just a web-based. We find that Chrome StockIQ runs fastest in Chrome, but we're supporting all the currently available browsers. If we begin thinking about the four key components of a supply chain planning system, it's really around inventory, it's around forecasting, it's around supply-based planning, be it a purchase order, a transfer, or work order initiation, and or monitoring our vendors' performance. So we're going to talk about those in the context of the core distribution manufacturing functionality. Then we'll get into some special features. But let's talk about the rhythm of how StockIQ interacts within the ERP. So the ERP system is the master data source. So StockIQ relies on, be it Business Central, be it Finance and Operations, be it Acumatica, be it NetSuite, whatever the ERP system is, that is the master data source. So all of the items are maintained in there, all of our suppliers, the minimums and multiples, pricing, sales history, all of that information is maintained into the ERP. And the way that this works is StockIQ takes a snapshot of a series of data directly from the ERP, typically in the early morning hours, once per day. And what we're doing with that information and what it consists of is sales order history. We use this for creating the forecast. We're looking at the various customers that we are selling to. This allows us to get down into a customer-centric focused on forecast or channel-based forecasting. We're also looking at all of our combinations of items and sites. As I mentioned on the front end, StockIQ has the ability to plan for a replenishment of an item that resides in multiple locations. So understanding those relationships, initiating those transfers is a big deal. Item information, what's on hand, what's our minimums, what's our multiple, what's available. All open supply. So what is our inbound supply coming in? And other based information. You'll also notice that we have category information. This helps us set up our hierarchy. If we're directly into promotion planning, or if we're starting to get into capacity planning, you'll notice that we're going to be bringing in resources and our bills of materials. So this information is brought into the system, and then we go about doing some calculations. If we think about calculations, they start by looking at a history of sales. So this is our forecasting manager. This is a primary screen that our clients would be looking at. Basically, when we're importing this data, we are coming in and we are looking for the most recent sales data. So this consists of all of that information coming from either the ERP. By the way, I should make a note that a lot of our clients are using e-commerce based applications to monitor their online sales, or they have other information coming in from Amazon, from the Walmarts, from the various portals. This information can also be utilized and imported into StockIQ, be it coming directly through the ERP or not. But bottom line, what we're doing in here is we're looking at the sales history. We're monitoring what the sales have been for a specific period. You'll also notice that we're bringing in the on-hand balance for that product on that date. This also gives us guidance on potential lost sales. So lost sales is one of those things that we can estimate. Again, the goal in here is to meet our client service objectives. If we don't have inventory on hand, it's going to be difficult to do that. So the last thing that we want to do is move forward with the sales history that doesn't reflect what we were actually able to sell. So with that data, you'll also notice that there's a series of bars that are presented in here. These are events. This allows us to go back and modify history to account for one-time off things. Maybe it was a promotion. Maybe it was a one-time sale or a shelf fill. We don't want to generate a forecast based on that. So with this information, we are going to be taking this and we're looking for three primary things. What's the overall trend doing in our data? Is the demand going up, going down, staying flat? That's represented by this line right in here. The next thing that we look for is any seasonality that might exist. As we're looking at this, by the way, I am looking at an item at a stocking location, and I'm also looking at it for a specific grouping of customers. This is what we call a hybrid approach to forecasting, or a customer-centric approach. Just a little side note there for you. So once we've identified whether there's seasonality or not, we're going to evaluate this data in the context of what the trend is. We're going to lay the seasonality in, and we are going to find that statistical algorithm that best fits that data. So it's a best fit algorithm moving forward. You'll notice this red line is a representation of what we think we're going to be selling out for the next 2 years. By the way, this planning horizon, the forecast horizon, can be longer than if necessary. You'll also note that there is a promotion that has been entered in for this specific item. So we've included promotional activity so that we have time to generate the replenishment for this. So with all of this information, we're calculating that forecast. We're also going to measure what the forecast error is, or as I like talking about, what's our confidence in this forecast moving forward. This is a real key measure for us from the standpoint, if we know that there's a 17.75% forecast error, and I am shooting and trying to accomplish a 98% service objective, I need to carry 50 units of safety stock to be able to accommodate that. So this sets the minimum foundation for this item. We now know for this item that the inventory should be somewhere between 50 units and 244 units ideally. If it's above this, it's either excess or overstocked. If it's below that 50 units, we know that we're going to be concerned about potentially running into a situation where we don't have enough stock. One additional thing on this that we'll address is the ability to also collaboratively forecast. So we talked a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about some of our differentiation in the marketplace, but being able to collaboratively forecast, bringing in point of sale, sales data from our account managers, from the product teams, and then being able to react and utilize that in creating a forecast or establishing a forecast is really key. The key in this case would be I can do it at the item level, or I could do it in an aggregation of products as well. But it's simple in that we have the ability to say, let's utilize our sales forecast. And by the way, we're going to set our new forecast out there to align with what forecast thinks. Now, our accounting team typically is a little bit more aggressive, or I should say, a little bit more optimistic. So we may choose to put just a smaller amount in. So this allows us to collaboratively come forward, collect outside endpoint to influence or help us establish what ultimately we're going to be replenishing to. So as we talk about bringing in that data, again, we're going to calculate that forecast, which can be used from a collaboration perspective. We're going to be establishing our safety stock levels and then identifying ideally where our inventory should be. We're also establishing a reorder point, which helps us determine exactly when to replenish that inventory. So a lot of those parameters that are currently maintained, there's placeholders oftentimes within the ERP system for putting in a min level, a max level, or a reorder point. But it's reliant upon the individual doing the planning to set those values and then keep them updated. StockIQ takes over all of those activities. We're constantly calculating our safety stock every time we go through a new refresh. We're also calculating it out for the entire planning horizon. And we can account for seasonality. So we might be purchasing for a holiday period. We know that demand goes up. Our safety stock is going to adjust because it becomes a function of that demand. So all of those things are going on in StockIQ. We're maintaining that. The other thing that we're doing, and this is where we'll take off, and oftentimes our clients, in fact, in most cases, utilize StockIQ's DRP or MRP engines. So in lieu of pushing a forecast and those inventory parameters back into the ERP, StockIQ is providing a very user-friendly, very full-featured replenishment methodologies as well. So this is kind of the foundation of what we're looking at with our replenishment, in that we'll summarize all sources of demand. Actual sales, they might be back orders. Our forecast that's projected out for the entire planning horizon. We'll then combine that with everything that's on order. And then you'll also notice over here to the right, we're projecting what our inventory position would be by day, by week, or by month, depending on what this setting is. This is also informing us on identifying when we need to generate a replenishment. Earlier, we talked about establishing safety stock, target stock, and max stock. We know that we want to be above that 50 units. StockIQ, utilizing the order policy set for this item at the lead time, will plan a suggested replenishment. You'll notice in this planned orders that we're planning orders out in the horizon. So even beyond where we're working today. So if I'm working in a weekly horizon, I refresh that data, you will notice that I'm creating planned releases for an entire year, going out for an entire year within this data set. You'll also notice that in these periods, if my projected inventory goes down below the ideal of 50 units or whatever that safety stock might be for that time, we're going to generate alerts based on this information. So this forms the foundation for generating that replenishment schedule. Couple notes in here for some specialty-based items. We do deal and work with folks with expiry or shelf life. You will notice over here in that order schedule, forgive me while I bring this back up, is we have the ability to bring in an expiration-based forecasting, a unique ability in the from a competitive standpoint. We also, from a manufacturing perspective and or a hub and a spoke, have the ability to forecast what's dependent on this site. So for instance, if I'm the hub facility, I sell out of this hub distribution facility, but I'm also responsible for replenishing those satellite DCs, there will be a forecast that's laid upon this that we account for when we're generating our replenishment into this site. All right, so let's go to the next step in the process. Next step in the process is all about the replenishment planning. Replenishment planning can be three supply-based orders. They might come in the form of a purchase order. They might come in the form of a work order and or a transfer. So you'll notice over in here, we have various types that are available. Manufacturer would indicate that I'm creating a work order, manufacturing order. A warehouse would indicate that I would generate a transfer request from one site to another, or if planning to a vendor, or I'm going to generate a purchase order. This is a 6-step wizard, so it's meant to be easy for our clients to utilize. What you'll notice in here, we were triggered to order 4 products. StockIQ makes a suggestion on an order quantity for all of these items. There's various bits of data that can also be displayed and included in this view. We have about 100 different facts that the individuals can promote and or include in this overall view. One of the things, in fact, I'll just demonstrate for you here that we have the ability to do to make this easy to use is I, as an individual planner, have the ability to customize how I want this information displayed and to look. So for instance, maybe it's as easy as putting how many order days of supply that represents, or I always want to see my description next to my item. I have not recognized or identify all of those various items. So I can customize what this looks like. Furthermore, I can do things like promoting different views out here to show where those items are that really need my attention. I'm below my safety stock. I'm below my panic point, etc. So this can be configured and customized. Once we get at the view that we like, we can save that view. One of the things to notice is I have set up a view. When I open this view in here, one of the things that you'll notice is it's preloading my customizations that I've made. It's loaded, it's already set and established. I can now set this my default if I want. The bottom line, what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide the planner with the ability to very quickly go through and evaluate whether or not there's any of these line items that need to be evaluated. So we are providing access to the order schedule. We're providing access to the forecast. They can scroll down through these individual items and begin looking at those. By the way, all of these order quantities can be adjusted on the fly if desired. We will make a note of anything that's been changed, and we maintain that in the history as well. So you'll notice that there is a mark out here that's indicating that. So all of this information is available for the planner. We also provide some very advanced functions for optimizing orders to fill a container. This is typically one of those processes that's taken offline and computed in Excel, and then they go back and they modify the order. In the StockIQ rhythm, though, what we're focused on, setting those forecasts, setting the inventory parameters, providing recommendations on what needs to be ordered, and then guiding this individual through the process, fully formatting up the order, ensuring that all the information is included. Next step in the process gets us to the point where we can do some workflow routing. A lot of our clients that have international operations, they need to confirm this with the overseas supplier, can put these in a review status. That allows the office externally to go out and review them and then release them. We can also do things like merging. So in the event where we're generating transfers on a regular basis, maybe we do a transfer at the end of the week, we can put all of these orders in a hold bucket and then release them all at one time. But bottom line, one of the things that you'll note is we have the ability to do order number assignments. We can assign them by individual destination site, by container, by individual line. Next step in the process, I can put notes in here. Real key element for us here, though, is to complete that process. We're publishing this data back into the ERP system. When that data gets published back in, basically any maintenance of that open order occur directly within the ERP system. So they're going to be changing dates or quantities. Then StockIQ pulls in a next refresh of that data. We'll continue to reevaluate, identify whether we need to make any adjustments to our order schedules. So that would complete the process and the rhythm, that overall flow. So let's go into the next area in here. Let's talk about supply. We talked about vendor scorecards. Vendor scorecards is about monitoring our vendors' performance. Two primary things can cause us to either stock out or develop excess. One of them, customers don't order what we plan to. Two, the suppliers don't deliver to their promise. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to go through and evaluate a vendor in aggregate. These are some wonderful KPIs and statistics that gives us an idea, line item by line item, whether they were late, whether they were early, were their quantities in full or complete. And then we're also providing graphs out in here like histograms, what's their average lead time, were they complete. Very nice when we're evaluating a vendor in aggregate. The other one is a lead time viewer. So we like bringing in a quoted lead time from a vendor directly from the ERP system. But even more important, one of the things that we like doing is we like actually monitoring their overall performance. So for a specific SKU, we have the ability to look at all of these receipts. We can monitor the original, the expected, all of those revised. And what StockIQ is going to do is actually measure what they're actually delivering to. So you'll notice, for instance, on here, that we're actually measuring the overall planning lead time to 25 days versus the 15 days that they're actually stating. 2 days of that accounts for manufacturing, the remainder of it's for shipping. One of the key elements that we can utilize this for is if you set the parameters in StockIQ to say, hey, let's pick the longer the lead times, you can plan to a 25-day delivery, but still request from the vendor their performance at the 15 days. So this helps us keep that vendor accountable for what their performance is. So that's the supply side of the house. We've talked about the inventory, the forecasting, and the purchasing. So let's kind of transition this out into a little bit bigger scale. So in all of StockIQ, there are a lot of visibility and dashboards and providing information to other areas within the organization to make decisions. So some of the things that we're providing, if we look at the 4 core, demand, we have the ability to create a forecast plan. This is the one number that the entire organization is using. In our forecast analysis, we have the ability to identify what our forecast is by item, by location. We can generate a forecasted quantity, COGS, revenue, margin. What's our projected on hand? This information can be shown in a grid-based format. You'll also notice that there's a graph, and my favorite is our pivot view. So this is quite helpful in getting the information out, sharing it with the organization. Oftentimes when moving this data up, it's often viewed in a little bit different view. So hierarchies. Hierarchies are the ability to forecast at different levels of aggregated product. This is a differentiating feature within StockIQ. And then in a lot of cases, to get this type of functionality, you're moving to a tier 1 based forecasting system, which in a lot of cases is can start at $100,000 for an individual module. So what this provides us with the ability to do is create or select a series of SKUs and aggregate them into product families, product subfamilies. This then allows us to go through, view those aggregated forecasts in aggregate. We can also make changes to that forecast at this aggregated level and blow it down. So as I am looking at my forecast analysis, oftentimes when we're reviewing this at an executive level, we are viewing this information by product family or product line, for instance. So I can come forward and I can say, hey, show me a 12-month forecast by product grouping. I go down into my hierarchy level. I am now loading up my hierarchy data. I can change the display of the data. I can view it monthly. I can view it in weekly, quarterly basis. I can also view this in a different view down here. So we can see visually what's going on. And then furthermore, you can see that in our product category review, I am showing what my forecasted demand is by product family. This can be changed as well. So I can change that to the point where I'm actually displaying it in revenue instead of a forecasted quantity. Another very, very handy view. And again, we can view that by node out here as well. So very configurable. We can save these reports. I can save these views so that they're easy to retrieve. By the way, one of the things that StockIQ does is we do provide unlimited number of user licenses, and they are role-based, so we can apply security to these individuals for a view only. Maybe they only have access to certain product lines, etc. So that's one of the big summaries, demand. Let's look at supply. Open supply. We talked about this planning horizon for a year. Our clients that are doing S&OP planning, SIOP planning, oftentimes will go out 18 months. But essentially what we're doing in here is we're able to provide a plan of replenishments for by vendor for an entire planning horizon. So for instance, I actually have a view out here, and let's look at our planned purchases by vendor. Essentially what I'm doing in this view is I am summarizing what I am planning on buying from a vendor for a specified time frame by individual SKU, right? So this tells that vendor what we're planning on ordering. These views can all be exported to Excel for easy transmission to those vendors. So demand, now we have our supply picture. What are we planning on purchasing? By the way, this can also be configured to actually show a finance or a cash flow outlay, which is to say, what will I be outlining to pay for this product by vendor? So this gives our finance team an understanding of the cash flow requirements that are going to be required.
StockIQ makes it easy for supply chain professionals to plan, forecast, and replenish inventory. We would be glad to schedule some time to learn more about your supply chain needs and provide a deeper dive into your supply chain application.